What's up, everybody? It's the All-Star break for the Boston Celtics. There aren't going to be any games for a while, so I figured this would be a good time to just recap the season so far. In this video, I want to break down why this team isn't good, what I would do to fix the team, what I think will actually happen, and just so that no one kills themselves at the end of this video, I'll just try to discuss a few positives from this season as well. So as of today, the Celtics are 19 and 17 after a 4-game winning streak. We're the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. We've got a 1-point win differential, but we're as close to the 3rd seeded Bucks as we are to the 11th seeded Hawks. We're 3 games behind the Bucks, 3 games up on the Hawks. Trade deadline is obviously coming up, and everybody is freaking out about what kind of moves the Celtics are going to make. So, what went wrong with this team this year? Do you have 8 hours of your life to listen to me explain it? Because I feel like that's how long it's going to take. So, if you're in your car and you're driving from Maine to Alaska, then stay tuned because this will be the perfect thing to keep you company. So, first of all, I want to look at why the Celtics are so bad. Right now, we are hovering around 500. We have been for a while with a neutral point differential. We have the 12th best offensive rating and the 19th best defensive rating. So let's start with the defense because I feel like a lot of us look at the defense and think that's where this team's main problem is. We just can't seem to get stops. But actually, last year we were pretty bad defensively as well. According to metrics, we were the 21st best team defensively last year, I think. And this year we're 19th. So it's just about the same. You'd have to go back to 2018 where we were ranked 7th to actually see us playing solid defense. Why is this? I'm not exactly sure. Has our personnel really changed that much? I do think losing Hayward hurt. He wasn't a fantastic defender, but he's big and he's versatile. Losing Horford definitely hurt. And I think a lot of it is due to Brown and Tatum. You know, unfortunately for Brown and Tatum, as good as they've been at times this year, they're our best 2 players, undoubtedly. So when you start to ask a lot of these questions about what's going wrong with this team, unfortunately, they're going to get a lot of the blame. I feel like Brown and Tatum have slipped a lot defensively this year. Now, whether that's because they're not trying as hard, because they're more worried about their offense, or they're just not feeling like trying, or they just don't listen to Stevens anymore. I don't know exactly what the reason is, but from watching the games, I just haven't seen the defensive intensity from either one of them consistently like I felt like I saw last year and the year before. The offensive fall is more precipitous but easier to explain. So I think last year we were 4th in offensive rating, while they're 12th this year, which is a pretty big slip. Obviously, at the start of last year, we had healthy Kemba Walker and at times healthy Hayward, and that made a tremendous difference. Hayward's gone. Kemba's knee is what it is, and that's where we're left now. Obviously, COVID has been pretty weird, but I don't like to use COVID as an excuse or even injuries as an excuse because it's not like the Celtics are the only team that's dealing with these injuries and COVID stuff. Every single team in the NBA is dealing with something. So I really don't like using that as an excuse. I know we've been without Marcus Smart for a while, but that's life in the NBA. When you look at the actual details of why our offense is so bad, we're 23rd in pace and 27th in assists. So that means we basically get to watch Kemba and Tatum and Teague just walk the ball up the court, dribble it into the earth for 15 seconds, and then shoot a bad floater or a long 2, or maybe watch Kemba get his jump shot blocked. So if you enjoy cleaning bathrooms, you probably enjoy watching this offense. It's bad. 12th makes it sound to me like a lot better than what it is. I think it's actually watching it is actually worse than the rating is. It's not fun to watch at all. So what went wrong for us to slip in both of these categories? Everything. Hayward leaving obviously hurt tremendously. Kemba's knee disappearing hurt tremendously. Danny's bad draft picks and offseason acquisitions hurt tremendously. Tatum and Brown having crappy attitudes this year has hurt. And Brad Stevens possibly losing his locker room. It's everybody's fault. There's blame enough to go around. So obviously the Kemba thing is the most obvious when you have a guy who was an all-star last year and this year up until recently, very recently, has either been hurt or just playing really, really badly. The best stretch of the year for the Celtics was actually at the very, very start of the year when Kemba was out and Jaylen Brown was our best player. And we played basically through Jaylen. Once Kemba came back, he actually made us worse for quite a while because not only is he a known horrible defender, but his shooting percentages have been atrocious, at least when he started to come back this year. And when you got a guy like that who's already a negative on defense, and then all he brings to the offensive side is scoring, and he's doing it inefficiently, he just becomes a net negative. And he was really dragging our team down. Not only was he playing bad, but the more shots that he was, it seemed like there's this weird correlation with the more shots that Kemba takes, the less shots that Jaylen Brown gets, which is never good to take shots away from Jaylen Brown because Jaylen Brown is simply better than Kemba Walker, better than he ever will be again. That's just the reality of the situation now. Hayward leaving obviously hurt us. I think it hurt us a lot more than people expected. People love to rag on Hayward because of obviously his bad luck and injury history while he was here. But the truth is that last year Hayward was really, really good for us when he was on the floor. He was very efficient, and he brought something to this team that they sorely miss, which is a guy who knows how to pass the ball, who knows how to kind of make the guys around him better and doesn't only know how to look for his own shot. And he was pretty much one of the few guys besides Marcus Smart that could do that for us last year. And now that he's gone and Marcus is hurt, you've seen what has happened. 27th in assists. We don't have guys that know how to get their teammates involved, and it's really hurt us. The less obvious aspect of this is Brown and Tatum, and there's all kinds of stuff to unpack here. First of all, they're not ready. They're just not ready to lead a team, and I don't want to say that in an accusatory way because they're so young still. We sometimes forget how young they are because they've been playing a big role for this team for so long, but Brown is 24 and Tatum just turned 23. So these are still really young guys. But this year, they've really both been forced to be our two primary ball handlers for much of the season, and they're just not good at it. I'm glad that they're doing it because they need to get better at this, but I don't know if having these two guys as your primary ball handlers is the answer for us. I really don't know. There is always the possibility that they can evolve. I mean, you look at somebody like James Harden, who when he first came into the league was a bench guy, a sixth man. And then as his scoring acumen started to grow, he started to become more of a primary option, a go-to scorer. And then eventually he even had this ability to get his teammates involved. I mean, you look at him now and he averages 11 plus assists a game. He's just a fantastic passer. And that's why it's okay when a guy like that has the ball in his hands so much, because at least he has the ability to spray it around if he wants to. When you watch a guy like Brown or Tatum in comparison to Harden, it's just night and day. I mean, they just don't have that ability. I don't even know if they want to have that ability, but it's just not there. They don't see the floor that way. They don't have that ability to make the same kind of passes that he can make. And that's one of the reasons why we're so low in assists, because we have the ball almost always in the hands of two or three guys that don't know how to make their teammates better. And this has been a huge issue for this team. Right now, our three best players are ball dominant isolation scorers. Kemba, Brown, and Tatum, all three of them could be like, at least in their primes, could be like the guy on a team who has the ball all the time and is looking for his own shot. And instead, what we have is just this sort of tic-tac-toe, my turn, your turn, three guys just taking turns, doing isolation, getting their own shot. And it's not pretty to watch, and it's not that effective. You can still win games. We're a little bit above 500. You can still win games this way because these guys are super talented and they can put the ball in the bucket. But it never feels like all three of them can be good at the same time. If two guys have a good game, then that means the third guy has to have a bad game. It just doesn't feel symphonic at all. It doesn't feel cohesive at all. And then if you just look at body language, you start to think, do the Jays even like each other? You don't really hear much ever about them saying nice things about each other or just the way they look at each other on the court. Now, I'm not saying that they have to like each other. You can look at Pippen and Jordan. You can look at Shaq and Kobe. You can look at Ray Allen and everybody. There are plenty of examples of players who have won championships on teams where the star players didn't love each other. They weren't best friends. They weren't hanging out. But you at least need to complement each other. You at least need to understand. You need to have an understanding. You need to figure out how to complement each other on the basketball court and also elevate your teammates as well. And right now that's just not happening at all, if ever. Brown just seems frustrated. He's given some really terse and cryptic and I almost want to say immature answers to some of the media questions he's been asked, just about like, what do you think about the ball movement? And he'll be like, no comment, stuff like that. That's really very strange. He just doesn't seem happy. And Tatum just has all time bad body language. He never looks happy. He's a diva. He's always complaining. He's always bitching and moaning at the refs. He looks at Aaron Nesmith and looks at him in a way that's like, I would rather die. I would rather have my son die than pass you the ball. I mean, it's bad. It's really bad. And I'm not sure how you fix that. I know that winning solves a lot of problems, and maybe it's just that this team has been so frustrating this year that they're also sort of bathing in that frustration and they're all just kind of feeling it. And maybe if we just started winning more, maybe it would just sort of be something that naturally gained momentum and that those moods would just kind of iron out. But when you're looking at the fact that this team is tied to Brown and Tatum, that this is their team and we're only ever going to go as far as these two guys are going to take us, you can't really love what you've seen from them this year, despite the fact they're both all-stars. You know, they just aren't playing well together, and they're definitely not playing well in a way that makes their teammates better. And it's, I just finished listening to the audiobook When the Game Was Ours about Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, written by Jackie McMullen, and it's been frustrating for many reasons. Just thinking about a time in the NBA where the best two players were the best two passers and guys that were not only, guys that can score and take over a game, but guys that knew how to make their teammates better. And unfortunately, we have two guys right now that are our star players, that are great players, that are young players, exciting players, but they have not figured out that part of the game at all yet, how to improve their teammates. And it's really obvious when you're watching. Now, Danny is responsible for a lot of these woes as well. Having 4 picks in last year's draft and getting 0 serviceable NBA talent is shocking. He seems to have whiffed on this year's pick as well in Nesmith. I mean, it's too early to say that he's a bust, but he's certainly not giving you what you would hope for with the 14th pick in the draft. Same as Romeo last year. Romeo played very few minutes, either injured or not ready. So now you've got 2 lottery picks, 2 14th picks that haven't been able to help you at all. And add on to that he traded away Desmond Bane, who's shooting like 50% from 3, for basically nothing, so we could keep players like Carson, Tremont, and Oshale on the roster. It's criminal. And then on top of that, signing win-now guys like Tristan Thompson and Jeff Teague, when your 2 best players are 24 and 23, just doesn't make sense. I said this in the offseason. I couldn't understand why we were making like these are the kind of these were the kind of signings that I remember the Celtics making when we had the big three, when we had Pierce and Garnett and Allen, and they were all like in their 30s, their mid 30s, and we were like, okay, we have this window that's like closing. We have to push now. We have to find guys to bring in. We're bringing in PJ Brown. We're bringing in old Shaq. We're bringing in Sam Cassell. We're bringing in all these guys because the window is closing. You need to win now. And I feel like Danny is making those same kind of signings for this team, which doesn't make any sense to me because, as I have said, and I will keep saying over and over again until I turn blue in the face, our young players, our best players are young. They're not ready. They're not ready to win now. And signing these old guys that are just, it's not going to get it done. Like he should have been looking at finding a way. And I know it probably wasn't possible, but the guy that the Rockets got, what's his face? The power forward. Now I'm blanking, but he's oh God, why can't I remember his name? But he's a young guy. He's like 25 or 26 years old, I think, and he's having a great year statistically. And yeah, he was probably a little bit too expensive, but those were the kind of guys that I thought Danny should have been looking at. Guys that are in that same sort of age range as the Jason, Jason and Jaylen, because then they can grow together and hopefully they can all be ready to win at the same time. So let's move on to how do you fix it? Now, I'm going to give you two different versions of how you fix it. One is my version. This is my plan. It's absolutely insane. Nobody's going to agree with it. Don't expect to agree with it. Don't worry, though, because it's never going to happen. It's completely unrealistic and it's never going to happen. But then I'll give you the version of what I actually think is going to happen. So how would I fix this team? Well, I would tank. I would absolutely tank. And when I say tank, I don't mean like trying to lose and, players giving up. Like you can't do that. You can't have a quitter's mentality. I'm just saying that I would make certain things happen that would put us in the worst position to win games. And let me explain how that would happen. Well, first of all, in the offseason, I joked with my friends about trading Kemba for Chris Paul. And it was a joke at the time, but looking at it now, man, that would have been absolutely perfect. That would have been, I think that's exactly what this team needs. They need a facilitator and a leader that forces the Jays to play off the ball, that forces Kemba to play off the ball. A prime Rondo, a CP3. I mean, I'd even take a swing at Lonzo Ball at this point. Now, why do I want to tank? Because I don't think that this team is a piece away. Like I keep hearing these trade rumors and people are like, "Oh, well if we get Vucevic from Orlando, we could win a championship." And I don't agree with the idea that this team is one player away from winning a championship. And I think they're a piece away from making the Eastern Conference Finals instead of getting bounced in the first or second round. And I'm just not sure what is the point in giving up all of your young players, all of your picks to push in so that you can just lose in the Eastern Conference Finals again. Like if that happens, you end this season disappointed. The players end this season frustrated. And now you have no assets for the future. Whereas if you just kind of tanked and tried to get like a top 10 pick, the players are going to end this year frustrated. You're going to end not happy. The same as losing in the Eastern Conference Finals, except now maybe you have a top 10 pick that you can package with Kemba or other players and some picks. And actually now you can try to really bring in some talent with the TPE. So I always said that this team's window was 2 or 3 years away. I still believe that this team's window to really win is 2 to 3 years away when Tatum is 25 or 26 and Brown is 26 or 27. And hopefully they've evolved into players that can actually lead a team instead of just being empty all-stars. Tatum in particular has shown this year how he's just not mature enough to lead a team, which I don't want to bash him too much for. He's 23. He's not Magic Johnson. But just if we could get into that range of getting a top 10 pick, let's say number 9, guess what? If we had pick 9 last year and the year before instead of 14, we could have Tyler Halliburton and Tyler Hero on this team right now instead of Neesmith and Romeo. So imagine how much better this team would be if you had Halliburton and Hero contributing, playing every night instead of Neesmith and Romeo, one hurt, one invisible. And this year's draft is supposedly better than both of those drafts. So for those people who think that this team is too young, I'm so tired of hearing about this. This team's too young. We can't keep adding young players. Look at the above 2 examples. If you pick the right guys, they help you win right away. And we have to face the facts. The veteran leaders that we are so desperately searching for are on this team right now. It's Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. If it's not, we're screwed either way. So stop trying to plug those gaps with other stars like Kemba who don't fit with this team, don't fit with the timeline, and just you got to ride or die with Jason and Jaylen and just hope that they grow into these players that you want them to be. Now, I get that you can't just tank the whole season because maybe they're going to be unhappy and they're going to want to trade. But I mean, come on, Tatum's like about to sign his extension and Brown just signed his. Like, it'd have to at least be a year or 2 before they start pitching a fit. And if you get that pick and you flip it into something good, then they're happy again. So here's my dream scenario, which is never ever going to happen. But like, let's say the Celtics get down to like pick 9 or pick 10, right? Which don't say it's crazy because, like I said, right now the Celtics are only 3 games ahead of the 11th seeded Atlanta Hawks. So it's not that crazy that something like this could happen. What if you put Kemba on showcase all year and then you get that 10th, 9th pick, whatever, and you package like a couple of future firsts, the 9th pick, and Kemba to Sacramento for De'Aaron Fox? I mean, I know that's probably it's never going to happen. And I know Sacramento would probably never trade him, but who knows what Sacramento's going to do? I mean, Sacramento does some wacky stuff. Drafting Halliburton was probably the first smart thing they've done in years. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe Sacramento realizes that, that they're not ready to win right now. They realize they could sell just as many tickets with Kemba as they could with Fox, and then they get a bunch of more talent through the draft. Who knows? But Fox would fix a lot of this team's problems because, first of all, the ball will be in his hands instead of Jason and Jaylen, which would automatically make us better. He runs. He actually runs. He would actually listen to Tommy shouting from his grave, "Run, run, push the ball, push the ball." He would actually do that. And so this team would I think they would be so much better with a guy like that. But yeah, what else should we do to get us to that 10th pick? Trade Tristan, get rid of him. Stone hands. I hate watching him play. I don't care that he gets 8 rebounds a game. Good for him. I think he's awful. He doesn't play defense. He was supposed to be a great defender. He's not. Can't jump off the ground. Can't catch the ball. I'm tired of Tristan. Get rid of him. Play Rob and develop him as our future big. If he's too fragile to rely on, then we need to know that now, not when it actually matters. Cut Jeff Teague, give all his minutes to Tremont Waters. Is Tremont Waters good? No. Perfect. That will help us lose more games. Give all the minutes to Neesmith and Pritchard and Romeo when he comes back. Whether they're good or not, who cares? We want to lose. We want them to have experience for the future. Start giving Jaylen Brown the Kemba Walker treatment, resting him in back-to-backs for his knee tendinitis. This will save his knee long-term while also, guess what, helping us lose games. If we do find a way to trade Tice and Tristan, play Taco. Once again, not because he's good. He might not even be an NBA player, but I'd like to know, and we won't ever know, playing him 2 minutes a game. And like I said, showcase Kemba. As of now, he's basically untradeable. But if we can get him going, he's been better lately, and he has a strong finish this season and puts to rest some of the concerns about his knee, then maybe, just maybe, he'll be tradable this offseason. Now, I know we probably won't get that much for him, but what I really want is the salary flexibility, and I just want him off the roster. Again, this is not a personal attack on Kemba Walker. He's a great guy. And I do think he's actually been playing pretty good basketball lately, but I just don't see how he fits with this team. We already have two guys who can't really facilitate, that are ball dominant, ISO heavy players. And Kemba is the same. Like, it's just not a natural fit at all. And so I just don't want him on this team. I would love to fire Brad Stevens. I don't think that's possible, but I think that there's a real possibility that he has lost this team. They don't seem to play hard defense for him anymore. And he was always known as a defensive coach. So a defensive coach that coaches a team that doesn't play defense, that's really worrying. Now, when I say fire Brad Stevens, I don't want to make it sound like this is all Brad's fault. He certainly does do some things that really annoy me, namely like playing Ojale ever, playing Jeff Teague ever, playing Grant Williams ever, and just assassinating Neesmith's confidence. I know Neesmith has not been good, but we haven't either. Like, playing Neesmith is not the end of the world. We're not a good team. But it's not all Brad's fault. I just think that, he's been coaching this team for like 7 years, and I think his team has just tuned him out. Going back to that Jackie McMullen book about Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, there was a great quote in there from Larry Bird where he was negotiating his contract with the Indiana Pacers when he wanted to be a head coach. And he told them, he said, I'll only sign a 3-year contract because I think that's as long as you can coach before your players start to tune you out. And I couldn't help but reading that and thinking about the situation the Celtics are in right now. I don't think it's Brad's fault. I don't think he's a bad coach. I do think it's time for him to go, just for that reason alone, that I think his voice is just not reaching the players anymore. And I think it's time for a new voice. So that is my plan that will absolutely not happen. So let's move on to the plan that I actually think will happen. First of all, the Celtics are not going to fire Brad Stevens. They're never going to fire Brad Stevens. If Danny Ainge is here, Brad Stevens is here. They're all going to be here until I'm going to die first before these guys are not part of the Celtics. They won't tank. Brad is just, it's not in his DNA. He will play losers like Teague and Ojale 30 minutes a game while giving our young players no chance to grow if he thinks it will help us win 2 more games so that we can get bounced in the second round. Danny wants to make a trade desperately. This makes sense for him because he proved last year that if you give him a bunch of draft picks, he's just going to waste them anyways. So you may as well just trade them. He also seems to think that our window for winning is right now, which I think is insane, but there it is. So what I want to do is look at some of the names I've seen floated out for this trade deadline and just kind of break down what I think and also what the possibility for the team is. So the biggest name that's been floated out most likely is Vucevic from Orlando. Nikola Vucevic is he's a big name. He's an all-star player. He's got fantastic stats this year. It's the best year of his career. It's also the highest usage year of his career. He's averaging almost 25 points, 11.5 rebounds. He's shooting the 3 ball at 41%, which is amazing for basically a 7-foot center. He's not great defensively, but he's not horrible. So a lot of people really want Vucevic. I don't want Vucevic at all. And here's why. First of all, he's 30. So once again, he doesn't fit the timeline. Like, this is probably going to be his best year ever this year. And then it's probably just going to start going downhill. So he's going to be getting worse as the Jays are getting better. It doesn't make sense. The other thing that doesn't make sense is, like, what are you expecting from Vucevic when he comes here? Like, Vucevic right now is the only player in Orlando. He's averaging 24 points a game because he's averaging 20 shots a game. He's getting 20 field goal attempts a game because he's their only player. What do you think happens when he comes to Boston and he's sharing the ball with Kemba and Jaylen and Jason, who are already struggling to share the ball between the three of them and all get enough shots? So he's going to average what? 10 shots a game? Maybe 12? Maybe now he's averaging like 14 points a game because he's just not getting nearly as many shots. Now, is that going to be worth it when what you probably have to trade to get him is like, I don't know, Rob Williams, Neesmith, and like 3 or 4 first-round picks? Is that really the move that we want to make? Like, I don't understand who thinks that this is the answer. It's crazy to me. Now, do I think that Danny is going to do this trade? I actually don't think that he's going to do this trade. I could see why Orlando would do it. This is one thing that it always blows my mind as a basketball fan. Like, whenever we're hypothesizing trades, we always like to say, "Oh, let's give them Grant Williams and Tice and Carson Edwards and Draymond Water and basically all of these guys that no one would ever want. Like, these guys wouldn't even make most NBA rosters. You can't just give teams crap that you don't want. You have to think from the other team's perspective as well. So when I think from Orlando's perspective, they're obviously not very good. They're not ready to win now. So I'm sure they think about that. A lot of our players are young. We're going to be getting another young player in the draft. How does Vucevic really help us? Like, he might sell some tickets, but if we could flip him for a guy like Rob Williams, who's really young and exciting, and some picks, that's something that I think they would entertain. So I don't want Vucevic, and I don't think that we're going to get Vucevic. Let's move on to the next one. The next name I've seen floated out is Jeremy Grant, who plays for the Detroit Pistons, who's having a really, really good year this year. He's averaging 23 points a game, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists. Now, I'm not sure why this name is getting floated out there. Maybe just because he fits the profile of what the Celtics would want. And I can understand why the Celtics would want him. I would be more willing to entertain the idea of Jeremy Grant than Vucevic because Jeremy Grant is 26 years old. So if you got this guy and fit him in together with the Jays, then that makes more sense to me. Also, Jeremy has proven previously that he can be a guy that's effective without the ball. Now, that's not the case this year, so I'm not sure why he'd want to go backwards. But he did that in Denver. He was a really good defender, a versatile defender that wasn't the first option there. Now, the reason why I think this one is absolutely insane is, like, why would Detroit trade this guy? It doesn't make any sense for them to, like, Detroit is already young and not good, and Jeremy Grant is young and they're not good with him. So why wouldn't they continue to build around him? Why would they trade him to get even younger and even, like, it does, the trade from their point of view makes no sense. Not to mention the trade doesn't make any sense from Jeremy Grant's point of view. I think he's happy being on a bad team right now and putting up big stats. He went to Detroit specifically because they have a black coach or a black GM, I think, and he's into the whole Black Lives Matter thing. Why would he come to Boston, which is like a racist city with the whitest coach and GM ever? Like, so just put this one to rest. Even though I'm like mildly intrigued with the idea of Jeremy Grant, I don't love the fact that he's 6'8" and averages 5 rebounds a game, but don't even worry about it. It's not happening. The next name that has been floated around a lot is Harrison Barnes for the Sacramento Kings. Now, I have actually managed to talk myself into this one, and here's why. He's 28 years old, so while he's not young, he's not a spring chicken, he's not too old. Like, I could easily see him having another 4 good years. So that puts him in line with what I was talking about with the next 2 or 3 years with the Jays. He has what we're looking for, which is size on the wing. He's 6'8". You know, basically the Celtics are looking for a replacement of Hayward. It's what they really want. So they don't have to play guys like Oshale and Grant Williams ever again. And that's kind of why I've talked myself into this. If we got Harrison Barnes and we could never put Oshale or Grant Williams on the basketball court ever, ever, ever again, then that instantly makes us much better. Not only does it make us much better now, but it makes us better in the future, which is, again, another reason why I think this is good. Another reason why I think this is good is Harrison Barnes is not a first option, and he never has been. And in fact, he's proven to be comfortable as the 3rd or 4th option. He did it for Golden State. And so I think that's really important because even last year, Hayward, even though he pretended like he was not comfortable being the 4th option, which is why he went to Charlotte. Harrison Barnes, I don't think would have any issues whatsoever being our third or fourth option, which is what he would be. And I think that's really important. Once again, I'm looking for players that actually fit together and not just saying, "Oh, this guy's good, this guy's good, this guy's good. Stick them all on the same team and see what happens." So that's another thing I like about Harrison Barnes. Also, if you look at his stats this year, he's having a really, really good year. He's averaging about 17 points per game, 6 rebounds, and 3.5 assists with good percentages. And the thing I really like is that he's averaging 17 points per game on only 11 shots. So again, if you looked at Vucevic, Vucevic was averaging what, 25 points on 20 shots, and Harrison Barnes is averaging 17 points on 11. So that's important to me because if Harrison Barnes comes here, he's going to be lucky to get 11 shots per game. So now you're talking about a guy that actually could come to this team and put up the same numbers statistically that he's doing right now. And he's also a decent defender, not great, but solid. So yeah, I'm okay with the Harrison Barnes idea, and I also think he would be the cheapest of the options I've just mentioned. I'm guessing that maybe Neesmith and a first rounder might be enough to get it done. He's not really helping. Like Sacramento's bad, and they don't really like kind of like what I was just talking about with the Celtics. You don't want to be in the middle. I guess if you're a team like the Knicks, you're just happy to make the playoffs, or Atlanta, you'd be happy to make the playoffs and lose in the first or second round. But, teams that have been there before, it's not great. So you want to be great or bad. And right now, Sacramento is kind of neither, although they're much closer to being bad. So I think trading away Barnes would help them be bad and hopefully get another really good young player in the draft that they could partner up with Halliburton and Fox and Bagley, whatever he's going to be. So it's a weird thing where Danny and I actually agree on something, but I think this is what he wants to do. And I think this is actually something I'm okay with as well. I don't love the idea of trading away Neesmith because I still have hope that he can be a good player. But I mean, look, Jason Tatum looks at him like he's the worst player ever. And I don't know how that's like, how is Neesmith ever going to gain confidence if Jason Tatum is just assassinating him with his eyes? And how's he ever going to gain confidence if Brad Stevens refuses to play him so he can play Jeff Teague's corpse? So, if you need to ship those guys out of here to get Harrison Barnes, to get a guy who maybe these guys will actually pass the ball to, I'm okay with this. Another guy I've heard mentioned is Larry Nance Jr. Fine, whatever. I don't know what this does or who you would trade for him. But I mean, again, if we're playing Larry Nance Jr. instead of Oshale or Grant Williams, then fine. But I don't know what you're giving to get him. So what is there that's good about this year? This is the last topic we're really going to dive into. Because I've been kind of tearing this team apart, I don't want you to think that there's nothing to be happy about. So I do want to cover a couple of positive developments this year before this podcast is finished. The first thing is the obvious one. It's Jaylen Brown's ascension. Before coming into this year, mostly everybody thought that Jason Tatum was a better player, had the higher potential, and that we were hoping that Jaylen could prove that he could be like the next best player. I don't think there's a difference anymore, to be honest with you. I think they're on the same level. I think Jalen's been better than Jason Tatum this year. But I do think that they're like, if you look at their value and their future, I think they're right about neck and neck now. That's a great development because I don't think anyone saw that before this year started. And yeah, it's great. It's great to see that Jaylen has even more potential than we thought he had, which is awesome. And then to look at Tatum, I'm going to give him like the weirdest backhanded compliment ever. So I watch Tatum play and he looks awful a lot of the time. He hogs the ball, he turns it over, he looks slow, he takes terrible shots, he doesn't get enough free throws, he moans all the time, can't finish around the rim. That's a lot of bad things. And yet he's averaging like 26, 7, and 4, and he's an all-star, and he's 23 years old. So I can't help but look at that and look at all the issues that I have with his game and just think to myself, what if he ever figures it out? I don't have that same feeling with Jaylen. I do think Jaylen could still be a better playmaker and turn the ball over less, and he could probably get to the free throw line a little bit more too. But I look at Jaylen and I don't see as many avenues for him to improve his game as I do with Tatum. I just think there's so many things that Tatum does poorly that if he ever addressed those, if he ever fixed them, that the level, the kind of player he could be is scary. So that's a good thing, right? Now, there's always the possibility that he just develops into Carmelo Anthony and just stops the ball forever and scores 30 and doesn't play defense and all his teammates hate him. And there's that possibility as well, but I hope that that's not what's going to happen. The other good development is Rob Williams. Time Lord, who I've loved for years, is finally starting to get a little bit of respect on his name. Even though Brad Stevens seems to be the last person in the NBA to realize that he's by far our best center. The stats for him per 36 are absolutely through the roof. He's more efficient. He's more productive. It's just not even close. And yet he still struggles to get minutes. Drives me crazy. But Rob has been, I don't want to say spectacular, but you have to watch him. When you watch Celtics games, Rob Williams is one of those guys that just jumps out at you because the Celtics have never had, not in my lifetime, and I don't know if they ever have, had a player like Rob Williams that can do the things that Rob Williams can do, that can catch the lobs 15 feet above the basket, that can go and block a shot that you never would have thought possible, that can make passes for a big man that really surprise you. Now, he's not perfect, but there's this weird thing where like people just try to constantly say, oh, well, he makes mistakes or he's out of position sometimes, as like this weird way of defending why he's not getting 30 minutes a game. And I think it's bullshit. I think it's crazy. Like, nobody is perfect. Everybody's game could be nitpicked. I just nitpicked Jason Tatum. He's not getting 22 minutes a game. Rob Williams deserves 30 minutes a game. The only reason, besides Brad Stevens being a jerk, that I can think of for Rob Williams not getting this time is that he has proven to be delicate. There's a reason why he slid in the draft. It wasn't just because of punctuality issues, which was part of it, but a lot of it was that he had some medical red flags. There were some concerns, and you watch him play and sometimes like he just falls and you're like, oh, like you don't know if he's going to get up. He seems delicate, but I just think that the time for babying him is over. Like, you need to at least give him the chance. You at least need to play him 30 minutes a game sometimes to see if he can take it. You can't just keep saying, oh, well, we're monitoring his health. We need to be careful with his health. Like, give him the chance first. And if it backfires, we'll then monitor his health. But Rob Williams has been fantastic this year. And the last positive is Peyton Pritchard. Peyton did kind of hit a rookie wall about a couple weeks ago, and he seems like he's starting to get his groove back lately, which is good. But here's a guy who, again, like I said, if you draft the right players in the draft, and I didn't think that was Pritchard, but he proved me wrong. If you draft the right players in the draft, they can come in and help you right away. Like, Pritchard has helped this team tremendously as a rookie. And yeah, he's kind of like older than Tatum already, so it's a bit misleading, but still, Pritchard is awesome. So that's it for the video. Yeah, it's a lot. What is my prediction? I think we're going to get bounced in the first or the second round, get a crappy draft pick, and just hope for better next year. Kemba doesn't get traded. Brad Stevens doesn't get fired. Unfortunately, that's what I think is going to happen with this team. Even if we trade for Harrison Barnes, which I actually do think something like that is going to happen, that doesn't make this team a championship contender. Does it make it more likely that we could get past the top 3 seeds? Maybe. I don't want to say it's impossible. Anything is possible in the NBA, but right now, like, even though the Celtics are one seed behind the Bucks, it's not as close as that sounds. The Bucks, the Nets, and the 76ers are just light years better than us this year, and they have been pretty much the whole year. I mean, you can just look at point differential it's not a perfect stat, but it gives you an idea. The Bucks are +6, the Nets are +5, The 76ers are plus 3.5, and we're plus 0.9. So we're not even in the same ballpark. And does Harrison Barnes get us in that same ballpark? I don't think so. But, it closes that gap a little. And like I said, at least with a guy like Barnes, not only would it help you close that gap a little this year, it could also help next year. And it could also help the year after that. And I think that's important, that we're not selling out everything just for right now in this moment, because this team is not ready this year. Those are my thoughts on the Boston Celtics as of All-Star break 2021. I feel bad for you if you listen to this whole podcast. You're probably too old to have kids now, but thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time on Rants and Reviews.